All right, looks like we're holding pretty steady with our participant count at this time. So we're going to go ahead and get things started. So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Kyle Lee, Senior Construction Solution Specialist here at ATG USA. And today we're going to be talking about the Autodesk Construction Cloud and why architects need it. I'm very lucky to be joined by my friend and colleague from the Autodesk Construction Solutions side, Ms. Lisa Stein. And so Lisa, if you don't mind, I'm going to give you a second to give just a quick introduction for yourself.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So thanks everyone for joining. As Kyle mentioned, my name is Lisa Stein and I am a member of Autodesk Construction Solutions, and my role over there is partner marketing manager. So basically I'm working with our partner organizations to make sure messaging and technical resources and things are consistent. But before that, I spent a couple of years working as a technical solutions executive for our named account space at Autodesk, focused on construction. And then before that, spent a little bit of time in sales. So I come from industry. I spent about 8 years as a structural engineer working in the construction space specific to electric utilities, and then kind of made my way into software. But really excited to be on the call today and to chat with you, Kyle.
Great. Thanks so much, Lisa. So again, team, my name is Kyle Lee, Senior Construction Solution Specialist with ATG. I've been with ATG for about 8 years now, coming up on my 8-year anniversary in about a month from today. But prior to my time with ATG, I was in electrical distribution for about 12 years. So, very similar from Lisa's perspective of having come from the industry, worked in the electrical distribution industry for about 12 years, working with subcontractors and general contractors. So, natural transition for me, getting the opportunity to be more involved on the earlier end of the projects, whereas in my previous roles, I was more involved actually as construction was beginning to get ready to kick off. So, but really looking forward to our webinar today. Before we get into the meat of the webinar, the actual content here, I want to start off with just a couple of poll questions for everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and initiate our poll real quick. I've got 2 questions that I'd like everybody to answer for us. So we'll get that started now. So we'll give everybody just a few seconds to answer those 2 questions. The poll questions we have here are: which of the following do you use most for project collaboration? We've got a couple of different options up there. And then our second poll question was: did you attend last month's webinar or possibly view it after the fact, our webinar that we held last month discussing common data environment? So we'll give everybody a few minutes to get those answered there. All right, I appreciate everybody letting us know if you were on that last webinar, because we'll make sure that that we're able to touch on that theme of common data environment during today's conversation. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap the poll up right now. It looks like a large majority of those on the call today have mentioned that they've used BIM 360 previously for project collaboration. That's awesome to hear. That's a platform that's very near and dear to my heart, same way as the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. About 25% have said they've used another platform for project collaboration. And then it looks like we had about 75% of the attendees today had said that they were not on our webinar last month talking about common data environment. So we're going to be touching briefly on some of that and maybe recapping a few of the points that we had mentioned in the last webinar, discussing specifically common data environment, or what we might refer to as single source of truth. Same thing could be said for both. So, all right, so that's going to wrap up our poll. So let's go ahead and move into what the content for today's webinar is going to be and what we're going to be discussing here. So right here, you can see that we've got 5 reasons that we specified that architects would use or need the Autodesk Construction Cloud or ACC platform for. And Lisa, it's funny because I know we put this list together and we've talked about this prior to the webinar today, but one of the things that we didn't mention on our list here, but I think it's well worth pointing out. One thing that's very unique about the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform is it's the only platform that's out there right now that's really intended for use from the outset of project kickoff and from the beginning of project design. Most of the other platforms that we see out there and we see being leveraged are platforms that really come into the picture as the design phase is wrapping up, and we're converting our design files into construction documents, and in many cases converting those native design files into 2D PDF documents that we're relaying to the project teams for construction. And so I think it's well worth pointing out that the first thing, and one of the most important things to keep in mind, is that the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform can be leveraged by teams even from the early outset as you're beginning to design for your project. And that information stays with the project through the life cycle there and is able to be leveraged by teams downstream. So no need to basically or potentially lose some of that data that doesn't get translated over whenever we're converting our design files into PDF documents. But the 5 primary reasons that we're going to be talking about today, as you can see on the screen here, are the ability for the ACC to act as that clear single source of truth, or that common data environment, or CDE. So you'll hear us say CDE, or common data environment, or you might hear us say single source of truth, and we're basically speaking about the same thing there, team. The next thing that we're going to talk about is how the ACC platform will allow for controlled file sharing. It also allows for it allows teams the ability to design in the same space at the same time. Also, it gives you the ability to easily self-check your work within the ACC platform, and it provides visibility into issue responsibility over the course of the project. Okay, so let's get things started off by talking about that clear single source of truth, or common data environment. And that really all starts with Autodesk Docs being that baseline module within the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. But why is a single source of truth so important? And I think that probably most everyone on the call may have experienced this at some point or another within their professional career. We see that design and construction is collaborative, but it's fragmented. And in this illustration here on the screen, you can see that we have teams that are working together, and they may be utilizing, many different methods for communicating across the different design teams, or maybe even communicating internally. That could be communication across emails, through file transfers, through transmittals. It may be that we're sharing different file types that not all project partners have access to. And then we see that disconnection, or that fragmentation, begins to get even more severe as we move between the different phases of the construction project, the construction process itself, or the project process itself, between designing and planning, and then into execution, and then furthermore into handoff and operations from the owner. And so, that's why a single source of truth can help to provide a totally different and more unique experience, and one that looks more like this. And this is by utilizing a single source of truth, or a common data environment. What it does is it gives everyone the ability to be more connected to what's taking place on the project, giving people access to the files, the documentation that they need, and making sure that they have access to the most current versions. And having all of this data housed in one area gives the entire project team a more connected experience. You have the ability to better manage drawings and project models. Also, the ability to make sure everyone is more connected about assets, project costing, but most importantly, more connected across all of the data on the project, which therefore leads to better insights around the actual execution and delivery of your project itself. So next, let's talk about some of the negative consequences and also some positive outcomes that we can realize through the use of a common data environment. Lisa?
Yeah, so, we'll go through these for each of the 5 different areas that we're going to hit on today, but specific to having a common data environment, what happens when we don't have that single source of truth? I think the illustration that Kyle showed is incredibly helpful in kind of understanding that and visualizing that. But just to dig a little bit deeper, we often miss key information and deliverable dates, right? Because that's attached in those different siloed areas that we're sharing information or just in siloed teams. We often see a lot of schedule and budget overages because we're missing that key information and we're not really appropriately communicating or effectively communicating, which is all going to lead to a lot of repetitive work. We're going to have to do things over and over because we're not just sharing all of the most recent information in kind of a single effort in a single space. And then there is the potential that we're working off of obsolete or irrelevant information, right? Something might have changed. We might have sent that or communicated that to somebody via email, but then there weren't 5 other people that actually needed that information too on that email. And so they're going to continue doing their work off of things that aren't relevant to the project anymore, which is again going to go back to budget and schedule overages and just overall frustration. But if we do implement a common data environment, we're going to see our projects completed on time. We're going to have more of a consistency in regards to how the project is flowing, right? How it's evolving. We're not having to continue, we're not having to backtrack again and fix things. We're able to kind of keep moving forward. We're also going to have confidence in project information, right? We are going to be sure that we are looking at that single source of truth. So all of the information that exists is in that space and we're working off of the latest and greatest. And it's also going to really help to build our brand and our reputation, right? We're going to be known as an organization that has a lot of really successful project outcomes, that gets things done on time and on schedule. And that's going to help us to win more work.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Lisa. Great points that you make there. So now let's just take a quick look. This is just a screenshot from within the Autodesk Construction Cloud web interface. And I'm just basically highlighting that single source of truth, that common data environment there, which is the files area. And one of the things that I want to call out here, and what you can see is I've got 2 different screenshots that are overlaying one another. And as you can see, if you look right up here at the top, these are both from within this exact same project within the Autodesk Construction Cloud, but we're looking at this from within 2 different modules. So, we're looking at it from the Docs module on the left-hand side, and then a view from within the Build module on the right-hand side. But as you can see, we're just in the files area within both of these modules. And as you can see here, all of the files are exactly the exact same folder structure, and we have the ability to manage and ensure that everybody has access to the exact same data, and more importantly, that they have access to that data across the different modules that each team may be utilizing within the platform. So it doesn't matter if you're a Docs user, if you're a BIM Collaborate or BIM Collaborate Pro user, or even a Build user, your ability to access that common data environment for the project remains the same, and it's consistent across the entire platform itself here. And so again, ensuring that everyone has access to that latest data and to the most recent files and drawings and documentation for the project itself. So next, let's talk for a few minutes about controlled file sharing. We talked a little bit about that single source of truth and that common data environment, but I think it's just as important to understand that we do have the ability to provide controlled file sharing within this environment. Okay, that's just as important for project team members in feeling that they have the security that's necessary, protecting some of their own, possibly their own pertinent data, things that may be, strictly brand related, but get stored in the project site for their teams to utilize. But again, we can control who has access to the different files or the different folders within the ACC platform. So Lisa, with that, I'm going to hand it back over to you to take a look at some of those negative consequences and positive outcomes.
Sure. Yeah. So when we don't have a way to kind of control, who's seeing what will happen is people will either not see any information that they need, or they're going to see a lot of information that they probably shouldn't have access to. And that can, we obviously privatize things for a reason. So that's definitely something we should pay attention to. Also, negative consequences contain links not expiring. You might have a link that lasts forever, and maybe I really only need to give somebody access to this information for a really short amount of time. I don't want them to have like a full run of it for a year, right? That's important. So it's not good when we just give someone access and they have access forever. We also, another negative consequence is that information tends to be sent out in siloed ways. It doesn't guarantee it's seen, right? So if we think about how information is currently shared, it might be from a phone call, it might be from an email, it might be, I'm just sending a Word document via, some way. Like I don't have the assurance that everything is getting to all the people I need it to get to, and I don't have the assurance that everyone's receiving the latest and greatest. So just a lot of negative things happen when we're not sharing information in kind of a controlled environment. But in terms of positive outcomes, right, what will happen if we do bring on a solution like this? Well, we get to choose who we share information with, right? We get to privatize things. We can send out transmittals, and we can understand who's read what and who's seen what, and and then there's also that receipt that they've received something, which I think is huge, right? Oftentimes you might be in a project and somebody says, well, I didn't see that. And you don't really have proof that they didn't, right? But if we send out things in a controlled environment, then we have that receipt of who it was sent to, and we can go back and say, but actually you did, and you received. We also can share information for just as long as you want to. So if I want to give somebody access to something for a week, that's fine. If I want to give them access for 6 months, that's fine, or a year, but I have flexibility into that. I get to kind of do that my way. And then we also get to share in a way that people are going to see it, right? From sharing from a collaborative environment, again, we're assuring that people are seeing it. It's living in a platform. We're not just sending out random emails that potentially go to people's junk mail or just kind of get filtered out and never to be seen and end up in some black hole. So a lot of good positives come from utilizing a controlled file sharing environment.
Absolutely, Lisa, and great points that you call out there. So next, let's just take a really quick look. I've got a recording here that's embedded, and this is just a look at 3 different methods that can be utilized within the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform for controlled file sharing. The first way that we're seeing here is by setting permissions at the folder structure level. So within the platform, we have the ability to set up permissions for the folders that we establish within our projects. And we have the ability to essentially manage which project teams have access to the information in those folders. Do we set a permission in all folders? Possibly not. Do we want to set a permission just so that someone can view a file, or possibly even view and download files, maybe even edit or make changes to those files? Another way that we can control file sharing is through the share functionality within the platform. And we can share at a folder structure level or at an individual file level. And as you can see, we have the ability to share with members of the project team, or we even have the ability to share with anyone that we share a link with. So this is just sharing from an individual document. You can see that whenever I say I want to share with anyone with the link, we can set the expiration for that as well. So again, those are 2 of the 3 methods. The third and final method that we can control file sharing with here, the third one that we're demonstrating, is through transmittal packages. So this is something that's built into the Docs module on the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. And so we do have the ability to create different transmittal packages to share with specific team members that may be necessary for the role that they're playing on the project. So we can select the different documents, whether those are PDF documents. I think in this example here, I also selected a Revit model or Revit file, and now I have the ability to manage who that I send that out to, whether I send that out to individual users or whether I send that out to roles or company teams. And so that's how we can create and share and control our file sharing through the transmittal process within the Construction Cloud here. So next, let's take a quick look at designing in the same space at the same time. This is really, really important, okay? Being able to work in the same space at the same time, especially from the design perspective. And, I saw that on the poll that many people have already utilized BIM 360, and knowing that we're talking and working with architects today, I would also make the assumption that that means that some of your team members have utilized the ability to design in the same space at the same time through the BIM Collaborate Pro offering, as it's titled today. Previously, it was called BIM 360 Design. But this gives us the ability to cloud host our project files that our teams are working on into the Construction Cloud platform. And then we also had the ability to connect or link with our other project partners who host their project files there as well, so that not only our team members, multiple team members within our own team, able to work in that same file at the same time, but they're also able to be linked into the latest and greatest version of the design files that the project partners are utilizing. And that leads to a more connected design process, really reducing the amount of time necessary in coordination meetings, being able to see changes that are taking place on a daily basis, give you the ability to respond to those changes more quickly. And again, therefore, not coming into a coordination meeting to find out that the work you've done over the past maybe 24 to 36 hours has to be changed or has to be modified because of changes that you were not aware of coming from one of your project partners. So Lisa, we'll let you talk a few more minutes about some of those different negative consequences and positive outcomes there.
Super. Thanks, Kyle. All right. So a few negative consequences. Well, we don't have a lot of confidence that we're working off of, the current information. If everyone's kind of working in a different space and then we eventually come together, probably going to see a lot of rework and then frustration because of that, right? So we just don't really know what everyone else is doing. Siloed communication for revisions, right? So I don't know if somebody has updated something. I don't know if, what I'm looking at is the most recent, right? If that's what I should be, continuing to design off of. So those are really big issues. It's also very, very time consuming, right? If I'm working on something and then I have to wait for somebody else's updates and then I can start working on mine again, it takes a lot of time. But if I could understand in real time what's been revised, that I don't have to wait necessarily for somebody else to finish what they've been working on. I have a line of sight into that and I can kind of continue my work, but it can be very time consuming. We also can't open file types that you don't have licenses of. That's huge, right? And that's also very costly and expensive. So if somebody's designing in Revit, but I don't have Revit, how do I get to open that? I don't necessarily want to buy a license of that. So there's, it would be very helpful if there was another way for me to look at different file types in this same design space. So those are kind of negatives, but positives, we can save a lot of time on rework. As I kind of mentioned on the negative side, if we have a line of sight into what is going on at that moment, we're not going to have as much rework because I'm understanding, I have clarity, as to what changes have been made, and then I can update my designs based off of those. We also have that immediate insight, right, into what's working and what isn't working, so we can make changes based off of that. We have this, no longer do we have this never-ending back and forth of, okay, this was revised, now I need to revise this in my system, and then I have to upload this, and that just takes forever, and it's so tedious making sure that you've communicated to that other person that you've updated your model and here it is, and you can look at it. It's just a huge process. So we can eliminate that. We also have the ability to look at file types that you don't own, right? We mentioned that you can look at different file types in this space. I know a lot of you, again, have been leveraging BIM 360, which is very, has been similar in that regard. Going to save you a lot of money because I don't need to go buy those other licenses now to be able to look at a file type that somebody else is leveraging in their design process. So that's going to be incredibly helpful too.
Awesome, great call out. So let's go ahead and take a really quick look at an example of designing in the same place at the same time from within the ACC environment. And in this particular example, we're looking at both the ACC web environment, web interface, as well as its interaction within the Revit workspace and environment here. So as you can see here, I'm just showing you that I've got my Revit project files that have been hosted into the cloud here. I've got folder structure set up for my different disciplines. So I'm just showing you that we've got an architectural model and an electrical model that have both been hosted into the ACC platform. So now I can come into my Revit software through the use of the BIM Collaborate Pro license, and it's connected to my different cloud hosted projects. And we can see that as we drill down into those projects, we see the exact same folder structure even in the Revit software and interface. So now I'm able to open up my architectural model. You can see that that's opened up on the screen. Again, we're now working in Revit. This is actually your design team would be working inside of the Revit software here, and they have full access to the Revit project. Also, I come back in here and I'm going to show opening up of the electrical model as well. And so again, different teams, different workflows. Obviously, the same team wouldn't be accessing multiple teams' models, but I wanted to show this because as this electrical model opens up, then we jump right back into the web environment and we can see what the electrical design team has been working on. and what they're seeing inside of Revit is the exact same thing that we're able to see and access from within the Autodesk Construction Cloud web environment. So here's the electrical model in question here. We can see all the 3D elements there. So now I jump back into the web environment, and just within the ACC environment and inside of my project, I have the ability to go in and view the 3D model. And as you can see, it's the exact same 3D model that's inside of Revit based upon those changes from Revit being published out to the website. So again, maybe you have people involved in the process that are not Revit users, but may need to leverage or have a use for leveraging the 3D model data. And so this is a way to give them access to that 3D model data, maybe even in a scenario where they're not a daily Revit user. And again, in a situation where they wouldn't have to purchase Revit software in order to be able to access that project data there. All right, so moving forward here, next we're going to talk about the ease of self-checking your work. So this can be a really big deal. Running clash detection and being able to see, is what we're working on right now, is it going to conflict with other disciplines? That can be huge, but it can be a very cumbersome and very time-consuming process with some of the tools that have typically been leveraged up until this point for managing clash detection and capability. And in many cases, that was a functionality or responsibility on the project that fell back to the prime engineering team on the project. But now with the Construction Cloud platform and tools built into the model coordination module, it gives all of the teams teams with access to that module, the ability to go in and self-check their work against the other disciplines at any given time. And it is automatically running these automated clash detections in the background as you load new models or new versions of your models into your coordination space where that clash detection is being run from. So Lisa, I'll let you cover your slide here, and then we'll take a look at what that is like inside of the environment.
Super, thanks. All right, so negative consequences. Well, historically, I might have to be doing clash detection in Navis, and also that's a heavy lift, right? And that usually kind of just goes down to one person doing that. So it's a very siloed process that only those that actually have that specific platform can do, which means that it's usually just one or two people. And I've been that person, and it's not the most awesome responsibility to have to do all of that clash detection and interference checks as new models come in. Very tedious. And there's no easy way to share open and archived issues with the rest of the team. So really then, if we've just got a couple of people doing clash detection, they're the only ones that know about the issues, right? They're the only ones that are providing justification as to why maybe something might not be an issue or why it is an issue. And then to communicate that with the rest of the team, they're kind of just sending emails out and hoping that those things get resolved. And that is kind of a negative aspect too. And then not checking work equals problems later on in project lifecycle. So if we're only intermittently checking our work in Navisworks, we're probably making some good progress. We're just going to end up with bigger problems down the road, right? If we're not doing these checks constantly, and as Kyle mentioned, new models are coming in and we're getting, updates into if there's any potential issues. If we're not doing that, we're just going to have bigger milestones to kind of overcome later, right? But if we are implementing a solution where we can do these checks constantly, we have visibility into where our attention needs to go. It's not just a heavy lift for one or two people, right? I don't need to have Navisworks to be able to understand, or a similar solution to be able to understand where there's clashes and interferences. As a team, if I'm a contributor to a 3D model, or I'm just in the project itself, I have that visibility, and that's huge. I also can understand why issues are closed or they're deemed not issues, right? We have visibility into the justification as to why something is an issue and needs to be resolved, and as to why something is not an issue and doesn't need to be resolved. And that might be something that's very important to come look at later when someone says, why didn't we revise this? I can look at that reasoning that was given before as to why something wasn't a clash or an interference. And then also just that collaborative environment, right? We want to be working in that same space so that we have confidence that we're working off of the latest and greatest information. And again, it's also going to eliminate costly issues and rework that might slip through the cracks or maybe just don't make it into a clash detection session if we've just got 1 or 2 people doing it.
Awesome, great. So what does this look like within the ACC environment? Well, let's take a look at that really quickly, okay? So in this particular video, basically, I'm going to show what that automated clash detection process looks like and how easy it is to start to self-check your work within the ACC environment. So as you can see, I'm moving between modules into our model coordination module. As you can see, I've got the list of our models that were loaded in for coordination capabilities here. And so now at this point, I'm just looking at the clash grid or clash matrix here, and you can see the different 3D views. And so now I'm selecting which models I wanted to clash together. And at this point, I'm looking at clashing the architectural 3D model with the structural 3D model. And so as you can see here, we can select elements. We can see where that element clashes with other models or with other elements in the other model there. And then we have the ability at the bottom, as you can see, to select whether or not this is an actual issue or if it's not an issue and can be basically disregarded, but still is being tracked. So in this case, we're going to say this is not an issue. Reason why is because it's a valid interface with the other structural elements that it was touching there. And so by doing that, it's removed that clash from our clash list, but it still is keeping a running tally in another screen of issues that either have been of clashes that are either being tracked as issues or those that have been deemed as non-clashes or a valid clashes with one another, valid touching, you might say. So now right here, what I'm doing though is I'm going back and I'm actually showing a different clash, and we're going to look at how, if it is a true clash, I'm able to not only review what elements it's clashing with, but I can also create an issue and assign an issue to another team member so that they can address that clash. And so as you can see here, now we're going to go through that process. I'm going to select that element again, and I'm actually going to tie the issue push pin to it right here and create an issue that we can assign to our structural designer. And so it automatically pulls in information about the clash as well as a screenshot. I'm assigning that to my structural designer on the team here. We can see the screenshot of that as well. And now that issue is being created, and that team member is going to be updated with an email. And you can also see that that one particular element is no longer showing up on the screen right up here because now it's been associated with an issue that has to be addressed. So the other thing is when an issue gets assigned like this, that team member that it was assigned to, they're going to get an email stating that they have a new issue that has been assigned to them. They can click from within the email and go directly into the issue within the web interface. But through the utilization of the issues add-in within the Revit software, we can also open these issues up and go directly to these issues within our model, being directed by the issues that are created in the Construction Cloud platform. So that makes it easier to understand where that issue is at and to respond to that issue, make the necessary changes directly from within the Revit software there. So important to call that piece out as well. So now let's talk about visibility into issue responsibility. And this also kind of plays right back into what we were just talking about and looking at there with the self-checking of your work. Is we have the ability to create and manage issues within the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. And that's very important because if we find ourselves in a scenario where we don't have a unified method for collecting and tracking issues across the project, and not just creating issues, but also tracking those issues through the different phases for actually closing an issue out. Not just creating an issue, but getting a response and being able to close that out, and having that visibility into all of those issues across the project, and being able to filter and sort by who is this issue assigned to, or being able to sort and filter by things like issues at a specific status, which issues are still open, which issues have been closed, and having that ability to quickly and easily pull that data from the Construction Cloud environment makes that very, very beneficial to project teams to understand where we need to be, putting forth our efforts and making sure that everything is being addressed on the project and that we can provide a very clean handover as we move forward through the different processes of the project. So real quick, we'll just talk about some of those, again, negative consequences around not being able to understand issue responsibility, as well as some of the positive outcomes.
Thanks, Kyle. All right, so some negative consequences. While our issues just don't get resolved, right? Maybe we're sending our issues out through email, people aren't seeing them, and then therefore they never get looked at, and we run into big problems further down the line in our project. We also don't have transparency into what people are working on and kind of what the status is. So are we in the middle of the closure of this issue? Has it been looked at yet? That comes when we're communicating issues in very siloed ways. I just don't know who's responsible for what, which also means if I have a question about something, I have no idea who to reach out to. And that's going to take me a tremendous amount of time to figure out who the responsible party is for whatever I'm trying to find out. And also a lack of visibility, right, is going to lead to more rework. If we don't know that these things are being picked up on, if we don't know, okay, this is an area of the project, maybe I should, step away from for a little bit because I know that Kyle's working on it, and I'll check back with him in a little bit to see where it's going. If I don't know that, I might keep working on that part of the project while he's doing something else. And then when he publishes what he's done, maybe everything that I've done is now erroneous and not relevant anymore. So a lot of problems can happen if we're not looking at issues in kind of a common space. Positive things that can happen is that I have a clear understanding of where we are in terms of issue closure or progression. Do we have 10 issues that, again, Kyle, I'll use you as an example. Do we have 10 issues that Kyle is responsible for and hasn't done anything about? Now I know to go reach out to Kyle that, hey, why haven't you done these things? Or maybe he's almost closed them and I have insight into that. And I know, okay, as soon as he gets done with those things, I can start working on the next thing that I'm responsible for. We also have the confidence that appropriate revisions are being made. No longer am I just saying, hey, pick this up, and just trusting that someone is making, revising that red line. I know I can see. And if I don't see that person doing it, I know who to reach out to. So it's really nice to have something tangible to kind of hold on to. And in that, we can hold people accountable. So we can make sure that if you're responsible for something, you are actually working on it. So a lot of people don't like that, right? Because then they're going to get, there is that visibility into that, but it's a really, really good thing in order to ensure project success.
You're absolutely right, Lisa. And that's going to keep that Kyle guy on his toes, because we know that he's usually a lot of problems on some of these projects. But, I say that jokingly, but you're exactly right, Lisa. It does give teams the ability to start to also look at trends. Okay. Do we see that we're having a very large amount of issues that are tied back to a specific team on projects that we're working with? Then it comes into how much are these issues accounting for from a time and therefore cost perspective. And again, by being able to look at this across your project, and then even being able to start to aggregate data across multiple projects, we start to look at and we start to be able to identify who are the project participants that we want to partner with, because we know that they are being held accountable, that they're actually doing their job, and that they're not creating more problems or more issues, or costing us more time. Gives us the ability to understand who are our valuable project partners, and do we possibly need to reevaluate some of our project partners because they are leading to a lot more of a possibility of overrun with time and schedule on the project, both schedule of time and cost there. So great call outs there, Lisa. And so let's take a look at what this how this can be done within the environment here. And so we're going to jump into the issues area. Now, one thing to keep in mind, team, is that issues can be created within multiple areas inside of the ACC environment. We can create issues within certain files, whether it's an actual design file, Revit file, CAD file, maybe even a Navisworks file, or we can create issues within PDF files just from within the files area. But also when we're out in the field and we're utilizing the build module where we have access to our construction documents or our sheets, we can create issues within sheets. We can also create issues directly from within punch lists and checklists. So it's great to know that issues can be created in multiple different areas within the platform and across multiple different modules. But it's also really good to know and to see, which we're going to right now, that all of these issues stay in a unified area for the entirety of the project, regardless of where they've been created from. And so right here, you can see who is responsible for the issues. Is it an individual on the project? Is it a company that we're working with on the project? And as you can see right there on the screen, that Kyle Lee guy, he has a lot of problems and is responsible for a lot of issues that seem like haven't been closed out just yet. So not only can we view our issues from within this screen, we can also click on it and we can actually see the information and the details about the issues that we have on the project. And again, we can see statuses here of open, possibly in review, pending, and we've got some there that are closed as well. So again, we have the ability to look at these issues and understand which ones are important, which ones need to be addressed sooner rather than later. And as you can see in a couple of examples here, we do have the ability to input due dates around issues that are created on the project. So again, better tracking of is this work being, are these issues being responded to or corrected within a timely manner as well. Okay. All right, team. So now we've talked about the 5 different reasons why we see that architects would need and want to use the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. And as we've been talking about that, we've actually been talking about and showing, a couple of different modules through some of the different screen shares that I've had there and the different videos I recorded. So I just wanted to take a few minutes now to just kind of go through and provide a really quick overview of the different Autodesk Construction Cloud modules or license types that are available for teams to utilize. And so this all starts out with Autodesk Docs. Okay, we saw a lot of the examples and the screen recordings where I was working directly out of Docs. And this is just that common, basically gives you that common data environment that we've been talking about, that single source of truth. Again, things that we're able to accomplish with Docs is document control, ability to version documents, as well as to put in review and approval workflows. Autodesk Docs is included with the AEC collection licensing. So if you have access to the AEC collection, you do have access to Autodesk Docs. It's also included or can be sold as an individual license if you have members on the team that maybe do not utilize the design software, the desktop design software, but they still would be participating in your projects as they're taking place. And we need to have access and the ability to possibly participate through the addition of new information associated with the project or the ability to view project files that our teams are hosting there. Okay. Also keep in mind that Autodesk Docs is automatically included with the other licenses that are available for the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So the next license or licenses that we might talk about would be Autodesk BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro. So the BIM Collaborate license is going to give you access to the design collaboration module, as well as to the model coordination module for the automatic clash detection through the web environment. Okay, it also includes access to the document management module or to the docs module and that single source of truth. Now, the difference between BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro, the BIM Collaborate Pro license is the license that's needed and would be necessary for your Revit designers or your design teams to connect their desktop design products to the Construction Cloud for hosting your files there and actually opening your actual live design files that are hosted in the cloud inside of the desktop design products. So that's the difference between BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro. The next license available on the Autodesk Construction Cloud is Autodesk Takeoff. So this is a module and a license that allows estimators and pre-construction teams the ability to extract 2D takeoff quantities and 3D takeoffs from their project files. So you can do quantity extractions from, again, 2D PDF documents if that's what you've been provided with, but we also had the ability to do 3D takeoffs by leveraging Revit models that we have access to and been granted access to from our project team. So really great way to be able to easily leverage the data that's already being uploaded into the Construction Cloud platform for being able to extract those quantities in a number of different ways there. And the last module within the Autodesk Construction Cloud is Autodesk Build. Autodesk Build is the module that's typically designed for those teams that are actually working out in the field, whether we're talking about the general contractor and your different specialty contractors or subcontractors, but also from the standpoint of your team members that may be tasked with construction administration for the projects. So with Autodesk Build, we had the ability to leverage our construction documents or sheets. We have access to and the ability to participate in the RFIs and submittal workflows. We also have access to punch lists and checklists within the Build environment as well. So now let's take a quick look. Now that we've talked about the different licenses that are available within the Construction Cloud, let's take a quick look at the really the key differentiators for the Construction Cloud at a platform level.
Thank you, Kyle. All right. So unified data. I mean, this is really what we've been talking about the entire time, right? We even look at this graphic. We see that all aspects of the project come back to the centralized location itself. Business insights. So again, because we are working in this unified space and everything that we're doing exists in there, we're able to kind of capture analytics and insights about how our project is progressing, and knowing that all of that is happening on the back end. There's nothing that I need to do to kind of understand, where we're getting stuck or where we're doing really well at. That's all just being compiled as we're just normally progressing and working through a project. Enterprise grade, right? So we can be working on this on a project level, on an account level, because of the different permission types in here and the ability to kind of templatize projects and pick and choose what we want to show up in each project. We're able to work on this on a really large scale. And then lastly, just the pervasive, I love that word, pervasive simplicity. So there's a lot, right, that we can accomplish in this platform, but at the foundation of all of this is wanting this to be a very easy to use platform so that people actually want to use it. This especially comes in handy on the field side, right? And Kyle at the beginning of our presentation showed two graphics right next to each other that what we're looking at in the office is very similar to what we're looking at in the field. Our field folks already have a ton of stuff going on, and we don't want to, overwhelm them with a whole new platform that's really, really complicated and difficult to navigate around. So big focus on this platform to have a lot of power, right? Really be able to manage the entire project from design to finish, but also be able to do that in a really simplistic way.
All right, great. Lisa, sorry about that. Your audio cut out there just for a second.
I said something really profound. Yeah.
That's the way it always happens, right? That's great. I love it. But no, you're absolutely right in what you're saying there. I mean, again, bringing it all back together, it's all about making sure that teams have access to that information and that data on the projects. Like you said, having the ability to extract the insights, it's naturally being aggregated in the background. Again, scalability at that enterprise level is a key to being able to bring this to the table, whether we're looking at it from a per project standpoint, or as you said, looking at it to roll out across the entire organization, and whether that's a single office location or multiple offices across the country. And again, like you mentioned there, the ability to do so is really driven on that simplicity and that configurability of the platform. So great information there. I certainly do appreciate that. So with that, team, we're going to move right into, we've got a few minutes here that we can use for some Q&A. It looks like we've got one question in here from Bruce that Lisa, I think you were wanting to address here. So I'll let you
Oh, yeah, totally. Is PlanGrid, so the question was, is PlanGrid free to access if I invite another team member or myself with only BIM Collaborate? So in this platform, everyone that is using it, like using the actual platform itself, does need to have a license to the platform. But if I am just wanting to share a document with somebody that's outside of the platform, I definitely can do that, right? So if we're wanting someone to work in the field inside of this platform, they will need to have a license. But again, if I'm just sharing a few documents, I can certainly send those out without that person being a part of the project. So hopefully that helps to answer that question. And then Kyle, I know that you answered a question, but I think it was a really good question. So maybe we could also answer it live.
Absolutely. And I was just about to read back through that one, as you mentioned there. So the question that was asked earlier, if I'm an architect, how can I share with those only on mobile or on a job site? So teams are able to utilize the PlanGrid Build mobile app in conjunction with the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform, or teams can utilize the BIM 360 mobile app if you're still utilizing the BIM 360 platform in order to share with those team members that are out in the field. So that's going to be the easiest way. The apps are able to basically synchronize the data from the project before you go out onto a project site, so you can pull down all of the latest information prior to going out and needing to access that. You can download and make files available to view in an offline mode. So even if you're working in an area where you do not have Wi-Fi access, or maybe you're outside of cellular network service, to stay connected while you're on the project site, you can still get the latest information downloaded into the app. You can utilize that app to collect more data while you're out on the field. And then when you come back into the job trailer, or maybe get down the road at a restaurant for lunch or something of that nature, when you're back in an area where you have Wi-Fi connection, you can go back into your app and tell it to synchronize the data. And that would then push your data from the mobile app back into the ACC platform for folks in the office to be able to utilize and leverage. And you would also pull in any new information that may have been added to your project while you were working in an offline mode. So yes, the mobile apps are definitely the way to go and the way to leverage. And I'll tell you, that PlanGrid Build mobile app is mind-blowing in the way that you're able to, the speed at which you're able to access the information out in the field there. So if you haven't taken a look at the PlanGrid Build mobile app, if you haven't moved on to the ACC platform yet, feel free to get in touch with us here at ATG. Be happy to set up some time to get a demo lined up and show you how that works, both from the web interface as well as within the mobile app itself. So now, Bruce, you said, can they access it on mobile? I'm not sure what you meant by that.
I think it's a follow-up to the question I answered. So,
okay.
So if we're sending, a link, right? That's kind of what we talked about, being able to send a public link to someone that's not inside
gotcha.
the project. If we send that to somebody, it's going to go to their email because they don't have access to that platform, and if they're not inside of the project. So they would get a notification in their email and say, here's a link for this, right? And then they could just open it from their email. So they certainly could do that in the field, right? On a mobile device or on their phone. If they are though in the project, right, and you send them some piece of information, then hopefully they would have the app on their mobile device, and then it would open up directly inside of their mobile device. So hopefully that is the answer to the question that you were asking. Okay, I cannot access my files on that. It's asking me. Yeah, right. So you would need to be a paying member, actually have a license to view it on the app.
So and Bruce, I'd have to, I'd like to better understand the scenario there. You're saying, I'm not sure which hosting platform you're in right now, if you're utilizing BIM 360 or if you're utilizing the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform yet. So you're utilizing both. Okay, so you've got two separate apps. The BIM 360 app is gonna work for your BIM 360 hosted projects. Now, I'm not sure what you're trying to view on there that you're saying I cannot view on BIM 360 free app. Not really sure about that one, but again, Bruce, we could definitely take that one offline and talk about that. But I'd also like to see what you got going on there to better understand what might be taking place. But like Lisa said, you do have to have access to Build in order to utilize the PlanGrid Build mobile app. All right, looks like we had one more. Yeah, okay, no problem at all, Bruce. Tell you what, let me do this. Bear with me for just 1 second. Okay. So Bruce, I'm sending you a private message right here with my email address. Please feel free to reach out to me, sir, so we can take a look. I could tell you that may not have an opportunity to look into that until maybe Friday, possibly early Monday, just because of my schedule for the remainder of the week. But I'll definitely be happy to talk with you about that and get a screen share set up so we can take a look at that together. And thank you for your questions. All right, so team, it doesn't look like we've had any new questions come in the past minute or two. So with that, I would really like to thank everyone for joining myself and Lisa on today's webinar. We hope that this has been insightful and beneficial. And so if you do have any questions at all that maybe come up after the fact or something that we didn't have a chance to address while we were on the call here live, please feel free to reach out to your specific account rep here at ATG, and they'll be able to help get you in touch with myself or possibly even with the Autodesk team if we need to bring in the Autodesk team for any additional questions. If you're not sure who your designated sales rep is here at ATG USA, please feel free to reach out via email to sales@atgusa.com. And we'll get that routed to the appropriate sales rep, and then they'll help you to get in touch with me as well. So please do not hesitate to reach out if you have questions after the fact. So thanks so much, everyone. We really appreciate you joining today. I hope everyone has a great afternoon and has a beautiful rest of your week. Have a great day. Thanks so much.